Then we have the main event of the evening. And it's not on UFC Beijing. It's over on Fight TV. By the way, guys, hit up at Fightful Online on Twitter. We're doing a giveaway for a code right now where you can view that show for free. Chuck Liddell, Tito Ortiz 3. Now, I have to ask this, as I do often with fighters like this. James, does the fight happen? We are just a few days away from it. Does it happen come Saturday night?
Yep, it'll happen. And if Tito loses, there will be some sort of injury that prevented him from performing at his best.
Oh, yeah, he for sure will be like,
cracked skull. Actually, he's kind of used up a lot of them. And I don't mean to poke fun at him, but I mean, that is something that we hear a lot, in terms of his post-fight stuff. I love Tito. I think a lot of people give him too much grief. I mean, he's horrible in interviews, obviously some brain damage there, but I would just it's true though. I mean, he's been a running punchline. If people had watched the sport back when Tito first started and they knew what he did back in the day for the sport, there would not be nearly as much name calling or this and that on him. And I find now people just that's the thing now. I see it every day on my timeline, people picking apart something, not so great that he says in an interview, but let's not forget what he did for the sport. But no, I just think the injuries, that's something that tends to be, highlighted a lot, win or loss with Tito.
He makes excuses when he wins.
Yeah.
It's just why I'm ready for the post-fight promo when he wins. It's saying, doctor says I need a back out of me, and they got to take my back out of me, and I'm back, and Chuck got the best out of me. I'm ready for it. I know it's going to happen. I will say, as ridiculous as I thought Tito is, I got chills when he beat Bader and he did the Gravedigger. I got chills when I saw that, and I've never been a Tito guy. I've not looked at one Chuck Liddell open workout video because what's the point? If we're basing this on skill at this point, Tito Ortiz should run away with this. He's got some pretty good wins within the realm of this universe. I mean, he did pretty good against some high-level guys that I wouldn't have thought that he would even stand a chance against. When he fought Liam McGeary, I expected that fight to be way worse than it was. But that fight was 3 years ago now, which is wild to think. And it has been almost 2 years since Tito has fought. But it's been way longer, Joe, since Chuck Liddell fought. How does this one go? Because quite frankly, I think if Tito takes him down, that's a wrap.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much the basics right there. Tito's not going to, unless the ego gets in the way, but I don't see him wanting to stand and trade with Chuck Liddell for too long. Just have Chuck thinking he's in a striking fight, take him down to the ground, and just control him, and try and get the finish, try and get the TKO, try and get some sort of knockout on the mat as opposed to standing up. The only reason why we're watching is because of just it's the shock value train wreck factor, right? What's going to happen between these two? It's not a viable fight for any division whatsoever. It's a spectacle. Two legends of the sport, Hall of Famers. They want to go at it, let them go at it. But I mean, the line on Tito's minus 275 plus 235 for Chuck Liddell. I'm not putting any money on Chuck Liddell.
I don't that at all in any way.
I mean, have crazier things happened in MMA, boys? Oh, yeah. Big time, right? What if Chuck Liddell wins this? What's he going to do? Start calling people out, right?
He wants to fight more.
Oh, man. I don't know. It guys, it is what it is. I'm hopefully going to be able to tune in to watch this. Thank you, Fight TV. But I don't know, guys. I think Tito works his takedown, boys, gets him against the cage. If he's not silly enough. I will say this about Tito in his interviews. My inclination was years and years ago, even James after the Big Bear, when the team and I went up to Big Bear for UFC Central to do that massive feature on Tito, and all the different times he kind of gave us the time of day. I just started realizing in some of the post-fight and pre-fight press conferences, the repetitive nature of his answers. I don't think he realizes that, dude, everyone's heard that many times, right? They've already heard that answer many, many times. I get it. You're because he's got a bit of a PR background, right? Don't kid yourself. He does. He's got a PR background. So it is one of those things where it's dude, everybody heard that already many, many times. And I guess in his mind, it's get the same message out there all the time, every interview, everything. And it's just no, it doesn't work that way sometimes, right? So still got all the time in the world for him, though, right? He's done a lot for my career, so.
Now, I do want to say there are a couple fights on this show that I'm legitimately interested in. Tom Lawler, who we haven't seen fight since 2016, he is a pro wrestler now, straight up. He works for MLW, independent companies all around, was fired probably when he shouldn't have been by the UFC, all things considered. Hasn't won since 2015, but I'm interested to see where he is. And I'm very interested to see him face Darren Wynn, who has an accomplished wrestling background. I think he's a 3-time All-American, very, very good. Not a bad fight. If you're throwing a card together, you can do worse than Gleison Tibau and Efren Escudero. That sounds like a fight that would co-headline a Bellator show on a Friday night that is headlined by Darian Caldwell. But James, what do you think of the card that they've put together? They could obviously do better than what they did, but we got what we got.
It's a boxing card. I mean, this is Golden Boy Promotions, boxing at its finest in terms of you got the main event. We'll just put together a regional show after this because this looks to me like a Conquer FC card or something like that because all these guys are from California. I should mention Albert Morales on this card, the former UFC bantamweight who's lost 3 in a row. He's taking on James Barnes. You've got Weston Wilson, a guy who fought in Bellator as well on here. Tom Galicchio from the Ultimate Fighter is on this card as well too. So there's a couple notable names that I'll be keeping an eye out for. Dave Terrell, not the same Dave Terrell you're thinking of, not the one who fought for UFC title, the guy who fought in WEC. And it's actually Jaron Wynn. And Jaron Wynn was actually an assistant coach for Daniel Cormier on The Ultimate Fighter. And he's actually pretty talented. Everything I hear is just great things. Huge step up, taking on a really, Lawler's got 16 fights. Jaron's got 4. Can he out-wrestle Lawler? I think that's the big question. I mean, Corey Anderson was able to, but I mean, we'll see if that sort of translates. And one more thing I wanted to mention quickly, Liddell, I don't know if you guys are aware, is actually training at the Body Shop with AJ McKee. Chris Honeycutt's over there as well in preparation for his fight for Bellator. So I actually interviewed Chris for another outlet, and he was telling me basically that, Chuck's got, the best training partners he could have in terms of all that stuff. He says he's, made significant improvements. I know you got to talk about a guy you're training with, but I thought that was encouraging at the least that Chuck's just not training back at the pit by himself with John Hackelman. At least he's getting, training with young bucks like AJ McKee and, Aaron Pico and those guys. So, that should be interesting ahead of this matchup. But I think the big question in the main event really is, does Chuck still have the knockout power? I'm guessing not. It's been a while. I'm sure Joe and I were at his last fight at 115 when he fought Rich Franklin. It's been a while, and that's, it's not like you take a couple of years off. 8 years or whatever, 7 years. That's a long time.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Well, actually, James, one sec. I think the power is there. It's the speed and the accuracy.
That's true. Yeah, good point.
I mean, I don't think you ever lose power, not until you're probably in your 50s, right? So, it's getting close.
Just close.
Yeah, 50s and 60s, I should say. But I think the power will always be there for a guy like Chuck Liddell. What's probably not there is the speed and the accuracy, the stamina. It'd be fantastic if he can prove us all wrong, right?
Yeah, Liddell turns 49 next month. I am very excited for that Wynn and Lawler fight. I think that's about as high level as you're going to get on a card like this. And Wynn, I think it might give him an idea of where he wants to fight because he's jumped back and forth between like catch weights and light heavyweight and all this stuff. And it's funny that he worked with Cormier because they are very similar in stature as it relates to those divisions. So James Lynch will have you on the post show that night. I will be at Starrcade, but head over to @Fightful Online, retweet that post, and you will be eligible to win a code for that to get that show for free, essentially. So make sure you guys check that out. We'll have coverage of Beijing. We'll have coverage of Liddell and Ortiz.